I feel like we're living in Groundhog Day because the same thing keeps happening to people right now, and still nobody's naming it. If I have to talk about this every day, I will. You are waking up tired. Even when you slept, your brain feels loud but directionless. You scroll, you snack, you plan, you worry, you numb, and none of it is even landing. You're not lazy, you're not broken. You are standing at a crossroads, and your nervous system knows it before your logic does. One path is comfort, compliance, and quiet resentment, and the other path is responsibility, courage, and becoming someone you can actually respect. And that makes this moment dangerous because both paths feel exhausting, but only one is going to lead to life. And what a lot of people are not realizing right now is the exhaustion you feel isn't from doing too much, it's from living divided. And I'm not talking about politically. I mean, you keep saying you believe one thing and then you're doing another, knowing what needs to change and choosing the numbing agent anyway. That split costs you more energy than any hard decision ever would. And the longer you stay there, one foot in, one foot out, the louder the static gets. This episode today is about cutting through that, not with some motivational speech. We're over that. Not with 10 steps in a checklist. Not today. With the one thing you can actually plant your feet on when the ground feels like it's moving underneath you. Okay. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Listen Bitch podcast. I am Brandy Lynette, and we're in a new season today. I haven't felt like recording the show for the past, I don't even know how long. And then I realized why. And it's that I'm thinking I have to separate my truth from my show and not take the brand. But really, my truth has been there all along, and I'm the same person speaking about the same potential. Only I'm not ignoring the shit show that is around us. I want to start a rebellion. And this is it. Season 10. And this is the new rebellion. Not the kind with riots, not chaos, but the kind of rebellion that scares systems the most. And that's going to be people who are grounded, healthy, clear minded, spiritually anchored, financially sovereign, and completely unwilling to outsource their bodies or brains or calling to anyone else. I work with people who think differently, feel deeply, and burn hot. People who've been told their whole lives that the way their brain works is a liability, when the truth is it's one of your greatest assets, uh, if you learn how to use it. I help people from all walks of life stop hiding from their potential and start taking radical responsibility for building a life that they actually want. I work with people to show them that happiness is a choice and they are one decision away from a life that they've dreamed of. And I do this with God, not instead of Him. Jesus didn't save us so we could play small, numb ourselves into compliance, or live outsourced lives. He paid a price so we could live awake and healed and fully aligned with what we were put here to do. And that's what the show is about. That's what this new season is about. And quick note before we get into it, I am actively looking for sponsors this season, not just anyone with a checkbook, okay, brands that actually align with my values, health, sovereignty, truth, responsibility, and ethics. And if that's you or you know someone who fits, please reach out. The audience is not passive. They take action, and I'm not going to put anything in front of them that I don't actually believe in. So, y'all, everything just feels fucked right now. Everything. Politics, food, medicine, money, relationships, purpose, the basic ability to know who to trust. There is one thing you can ground yourself in that's going to cut through all the bullshit. And that is going to be truth lived out through responsibility. And I don't mean truth as a concept that you agree with in your head, not truth as a bumper sticker or a position you hold on the internet. I mean truth as in daily embodied practice. And the difference between those two things is the difference between someone who knows what they should do and someone who actually does it. And that gap That gap is where most of you are quietly suffering right now. And this matters, especially for a way that a lot of you are wired when your thoughts are running faster than your body can keep up with, when your emotions don't have a container, when your values and your behavior are painted in random colors and everything's pointed in opposite directions. Your nervous system doesn't just get uncomfortable, it goes into static. And you have that hum of anxiety, that sense that something is off, but you can't quite name it. And that reaching for your phone before you've even opened your eyes in the morning, that is not a personality flaw. That's a nervous system screaming that the internal and external don't match. You have zero coherence between your heart and your brain. It is not aligned. And when that mismatch goes on long enough, the brain starts doing something really clever and really destructive at the same time. It starts numbing. There is a trap here. And I want to explain why your brain is doing this on purpose. Okay. And I want you to sit with this because a lot of people just blow right through this. Okay. Numbness doesn't feel like a choice that you're making. It feels like relief. And that is exactly why it works. Because the alternative to numbness is choice. And choice means ownership. And ownership means consequences, which means your brain, in its infinite desire to protect you from pain, it's offering you the numbing agent before you even realize you're reaching for it. And it's not weakness, you guys. This is literally straight up survival. And survival and thriving are not the same thing. Your brain doesn't automatically know the difference. It knows that threat. It knows what relief is. It doesn't know calling. And this is the part that you have to teach your brain. And this is where, you guys, neuroplasticity is the greatest gift that we have ever been given. And they used to think it didn't exist. I mean, that was it. Your brain was just set in stone. Who you were is who you were. That was who you would always be. That's not true. But neuroplasticity becomes one of the most powerful and underused tools and truths in your toolkit. Your brain is not fixed. It is always wiring itself toward whatever you practice the most. And in that, practicing avoidance, if you practice that, avoidance that is like scrolling instead of making a real decision, or snacking instead of sitting in your feelings, or staying busy and worrying about everybody else rather than just being fucking honest. Your brain gets better and better at avoidance, and it literally builds the neural pathways that make it easier to dodge the next hard thing. But the flip side is also true. If you practice responsibility, if you keep your word to yourself, even when it's small, even when nobody's watching, your brain starts to associate action with safety. It starts to trust you. And that rewiring is very real. It's measurable, it's tangible, and it's available to you listening to this right now. But most people are still waiting until they feel ready or motivated or clear before they take action. And they don't realize that the clarity comes after the action, not before. You don't think your way into a new way of living. You act your way into a new way of thinking. And there's a price here. And I want to go a little bit deeper because this isn't just about productivity or habits. This is spiritual. And people think that evil looks like chaos, but it usually looks like agreement. It looks like quiet compliance. It looks like 1,000 small decisions to stay silent, to not rock the boat, to reframe what you know is wrong as something more palatable, to twist what God already called sin into something that sounds like compassion. And before you think I'm talking about someone else, I'm talking about all of us. There is a slow drift away from the truth that isn't dramatic. It's incremental. It's one compromise that felt reasonable, followed by another, followed by another, followed by another, followed by another, until you look up one day and you don't recognize who the fuck you've become or what you actually believe anymore. And the trap that keeps you locked in that drift is cognitive dissonance mixed with fear, because once you see something clearly, you only have two options. You change or you numb. And most people choose that numbness because truth costs something real. It costs comfort. It costs relationships. It costs a version of yourself that people were used to. Sometimes it costs money. So they stay quiet, reframing sin as compassion. And they call it wisdom when it's really self-preservation, and silence doesn't protect them. It just trains them to live divided. Jesus did not put a calling on your life so you can manage it quietly from a safe distance. He put it there because he knew what you were capable of. Even if you don't at this moment, it doesn't make it not true. It is a fact. And the cost of knowing that, of feeling that tension in your chest and choosing to anesthetize that instead of moving through it, that price is paid daily. And it's not in one dramatic moment. It is in the slow erosion of your peace. It shows up when you know you should take care of your body, but you keep grabbing chemical-filled fast food because thinking about nutrition feels like one more thing you don't have capacity for. It shows up when you know that you're called to more, but you stay in a shitty life that feels small because it pays the bills and it doesn't require you to risk anything. It shows up when you sense God nudging you forward, and instead of obeying, you negotiate. You ask for another sign. You wait for a better time. You tell yourself you'll be ready when things calm down. They're never going to calm down. That is not how this works. It shows up at 2 a.m. when your brain is spinning through everything you didn't say, didn't do, didn't choose, not because you're broken, but because your soul is trying to get your attention, and this is the only quiet minute it can find. And it flares the hardest when you're depleted, when you're tired, when you're overstimulated, scrolling too much, eating bullshit food, garbage, disconnected from your body, disconnected from God, running on fumes and calling it busy, because a depleted person is manageable. A regulated, grounded, clear-headed person who knows who the fuck they are and why the fuck they are here, that person is not. And whether you believe that's by design or just the natural consequence of a culture that profits from your distraction, the result is the same. The most powerful version of you is the one that gets sacrificed on the altar of convenience. This is stewardship. And that word has really come up a lot for me lately. A year ago, you couldn't have paid me to use that word. But you were entrusted. You're entrusted with a body, with a mind, with a calling, an influence. Whether that influence reaches one person or a million, it's real and it's yours to steward. And stewardship requires presence. It requires you to actually be here in your life, making conscious choices instead of drifting through reactions. Every culture worships something. Every god demands a sacrifice. Demons are out here demanding silence, compromise, and loyalty to money over truth. Fear demands that you make yourself small. Convenience demands that you outsource your body, your thinking, your soul. Neutrality, by the way, is a myth, because agreeing with a lie by staying silent is still a fucking agreement. Understand that? Silence is complicity. And the rebellion isn't about fighting the world. I'm not taking on the world. That's not my job. The rebellion is about refusing to abandon yourself. It's about deciding that the best version of you, the one that God designed, the one that Jesus paid the price for, is worth the discomfort of becoming. That version of you takes care of their body, not because of vanity, but because you can't do the work you're called to from a depleted, chemical-fogged, chronically inflamed, fat fucking body. That version of you builds wealth with integrity, because financial sovereignty is what lets you keep the people you choose to help without compromise. That version of you tells the truth, even when it costs something, because you know that every time you don't, you train yourself to live smaller. Start stupid simple. Not because you're not capable of more, but because the whole point is to rebuild your brain into trusting you again. And your brain doesn't trust grand gestures. It trusts follow through. So pick the daily non-negotiable that reconnects you to the truth through action. Not 10, just one. Maybe today for you, that's eating real, actual food for one meal today and paying attention, like genuinely paying attention to how your body responds. Not from guilt, not from a diet plan, just from curiosity. What does it feel like to give your body something it can actually use? That one moment of awareness is a data point. And data points add up. Maybe it's a walk without headphones, 10 minutes, like no podcast, no music, no distraction, just you and your nervous system getting reacquainted. You would be shocked how much clarity shows up when you stop filling every silent moment with noise. Maybe it's turning off the input long enough to actually ask God what He's asking of you right now. Not someday, not when you're ready, today. And then sitting there long enough to actually listen instead of immediately reaching for the next thing. Whatever it is, do it. And then I want you to do it again tomorrow. Not because motivation showed up, but because you said you would. And that's the whole thing. Trust is rebuilt through follow through, not through intention. Every time you do what you said you do, even when it's small, you signal safety to your nervous system. You tell your brain, this person can be trusted, and slowly, steadily, that rewiring changes everything. That's grounding. That's how clarity returns. And that's what rebellion actually looks like today on a Wednesday. And this is just episode 1 of the rebellion, okay? I'm just getting started and I'm not going to play small with this new season. So if this episode hit you somewhere real, don't just let it sit there. Do the thing that almost nobody does when something actually fucking matters to them. Like the show, subscribe, leave a written review. I know everyone says that, and I'm saying it because it genuinely matters. It's how other people who need this actually find it, and reviews are how that happens. It takes 2 minutes. Then head to brainandlynette.com and get plugged into everything I'm building, okay? The list, the coaching, all of it. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Watch the full video version of this episode, because seeing it differently, it touches a different place than it does when you hear it. And this is the rebellion. Becoming the best version of yourself. Making real money with integrity. Taking care of your health and not outsourcing it to anyone who profits from you staying sick. Choosing truth over numbness. And walking out the life God actually called you to. Not the safe version, not the small version, but the real one, okay?